The dawn of February 20th, 1991, a tragedy foretold. The icy wind that morning in Victoria, British Columbia, seemed to carry an ominous warning. As the fog slowly lifted over Oak Bay Marina, revealing Sealand of the Pacific, the first rays of sunlight illuminated a scene that, at first glance, appeared peaceful, but the reality was much darker. The park, already facing financial difficulties, was operating with precarious structures. The main tank, where 3 adult orcas were kept, was smaller than an Olympic swimming pool, a claustrophobic space for animals accustomed to swimming more than 160 kilometers a day in the wild. The water, often greenish and foul-smelling due to a faulty filtration system, was a reflection of the neglect that permeated the facility. Life before the tragedy, Keltie and her convictions. Keltie Byrne was not just an intern. She was a young woman passionate about marine biology, with a huge heart and a sense of justice that led her to question everything. In her diary, found years later, she wrote, "Today I went to a show at Sealand. People laugh and clap, but all I can think is, do they see what I see? These animals aren't smiling. They're trapped, and we're their jailers." Her colleagues described her as someone who always stood up for animals, even when it meant disagreeing with her supervisors. On one occasion, she refused to participate in training that used food deprivation as a conditioning method. "This isn't education, it's torture," she reportedly told a colleague. Orcas, victims of a cruel system. Tilikum, Haida II and Nootka IV were not simply killer whales. They were individuals with deeply tragic stories. Tilikum, captured at 2 years old, was torn from his family in Icelandic waters. Witnesses to the capture reported that he cried for days, emitting anguished sounds that echoed through the isolation tank, where he was confined before being sent to Sealand. Haida II had lost 2 calves in captivity. The first drowned after becoming trapped in a grate. The second, rejected by her due to extreme stress, had to be fed by humans until he succumbed to an infection. Nootka IV, once a sociable orca, developed stereotypical behaviors, swimming in tight circles for hours until her dorsal fin curved permanently to one side, a visible sign of her psychological distress. The signs that were ignored. In the months leading up to the accident, several warnings were given. Increasingly aggressive behavior, Tilikum began destroying equipment and biting the tank rails. An internal report mentioned that he seemed to be testing the limits of his confinement. Health problems. His blood tests showed alarming levels of stress. A veterinarian suggested that he be transferred to a location with more space, but management ignored the request. The cost was too high. Lack of staff training. Keltie and other trainers had never received instructions on how to respond in the event of an attack. "We were told that orcas in captivity were not dangerous," revealed a former employee. The day of the accident, a disaster that could have been avoided. At 11:17 a.m., Keltie climbed onto the platform to prepare for the 11:30 show. Witnesses reported that Tilikum seemed particularly agitated, slapping his tail on the water with unusual force. 11:23 a.m., Keltie slipped on a puddle of water. Before she could recover, Tilikum quickly approached her. 11:24 a.m., the impact was brutal. Tilikum pulled her into the water with such force that he broke her wristwatch, a gift from her parents. 11:25 to 11:27 a.m. The 2 females joined the attack. Keltie struggled to reach the surface, but the orcas kept her submerged. Employees tried to throw nets, buckets of fish, and even shouted commands, but nothing worked. 11:31 a.m. Her movements grew weaker. Her last cry, "Help me!" echoed through the park before she disappeared into the murky waters. 11:34 a.m. Her body sank. Tilikum held her at the bottom for a few more minutes before letting her go. The cover-up and profit over life, the truth that Sealand and SeaWorld tried to erase. The official report of the incident was a shameful sham. At just 3 vague pages long and full of omissions, it ignored crucial facts that only emerged years later, thanks to the courage of former employees and leaks of internal documents. What was revealed was a system that prioritized profits over lives, both human and animal. The darkest secret, the blood economy behind Tilikum. Tilikum's sale to SeaWorld was as quick as it was suspicious. Just 48 hours after the tragedy, the 5-ton male was traded for $1 million, a pittance for a breeder of his size. The motives behind this shady deal are alarming. Sealand wanted to get rid of its problem property before further investigations began. Employees reported pressure from management to get rid of the animal before the press created more problems. SeaWorld saw him as a genetic goldmine. Internal documents reveal that the company already had plans to use Tilikum as its main breeding animal, anticipating tens of millions in profits from his future offspring. The shocking truth: between 1992 and 2011, Tilikum sired at least 21 calves in captivity, representing 54% of SeaWorld's orca population. Each of these lives yielded millions in shows and tourist attractions. The other victims: the sinister fate of Haida II and Nootka IV. While Tilikum was transferred to continue his breeding career, his tank mates faced even darker fates. Haida II, the suspicious death. Exactly 3 weeks after the incident, the female orca suddenly died without any plausible explanation. Internal witnesses claim that she was found floating lifeless in the tank in the morning. No autopsy was performed, violating basic protocols. Her body was quickly incinerated, with no official record of the cause of death. Nootka IV, a sentence of eternal solitude. Transferred to Texas Marine Park, her new home was a circular concrete tank, smaller than the space she had at Sealand. For 14 years, she lived in complete isolation, the only orca in the park. She developed psychotic behaviors, swimming in tight circles, banging her head against the walls, and spending hours motionless on the surface. When she died in 2005, her death was not even announced to the public. Internal records classify her as a loss of biological asset. The true meaning of the attack: when instinct becomes tragedy. Modern acoustic analysis has revealed the disturbing truth behind that fateful day. The distress calls. Before grabbing Keltie, Tilikum emitted a specific sequence of sounds, identical to those used by wild orcas when a family member is in danger. The misunderstood rescue attempt. In nature, orcas support injured animals by holding them underwater to stabilize them. Tilikum's instinct was to try to save Keltie in the same way. The tragedy is complete. Haida and Nootka joined in the behavior, interpreting the situation as a collective rescue. What was help to them meant death to a human. It was the worst interspecies misunderstanding I've ever documented, laments Dr. John Ford, a pioneer in orca bioacoustics. They acted out of compassion, not aggression. Keltie's legacy: why this story resonates today. Keltie Byrne became much more than a victim. Her name became a symbol in the fight for marine animal rights. Her intimate diary, with reflections on the ethics of captivity, was crucial in the documentary Blackfish, forever changing public perception of marine parks. Her family founded the Keltie Byrne Memorial Fund, which funds research for marine sanctuaries where orcas can live in semi-freedom. Her case exposed the cruel mathematics of captivity. Wild orcas live for decades in close-knit families, swimming up to 160 kilometers a day in the open ocean. In captivity, 80% die before the age of 20, confined to spaces smaller than 0.001% of their natural territory. Calves are routinely separated from their mothers to be sold between parks, a trade that generates millions. What now? Your role in this story? This is not just a story about the past. As long as parks continue to keep orcas in captivity, we are all part of this narrative. Here's how you can make a difference. Vote with your money. Boycott any establishment that exploits marine animals for entertainment. Report cases of mistreatment at water parks to the authorities. Support ethical solutions. Organizations such as the Whale Sanctuary Project are working to create coastal sanctuaries where rescued orcas can live with dignity. Educate yourself and others. Documentaries such as Blackfish and The Cove reveal the reality behind the shows. Give a voice to those who cannot speak for themselves. Share this story. Talk about Keltie, Tilikum, Haida and Nootka. Ask yourself, if you knew then what we know today, would you have applauded these shows? Silence is complicity. Indifference is a death sentence. What you choose to do from this day forward will define which side of history you will be on. In the end, it wasn't the orcas who failed us. We failed them. Excerpt from Keltie Byrne's diary, 1990. If this story touched you, you can. Boycott parks that keep orcas in captivity. Support marine sanctuaries, where rescued animals can live in semi-freedom. Share this story, because Keltie's memory deserves more than a forgotten accident. It deserves real change. What will you choose? Leave your comments below. And if you believe these animals deserve freedom, share this text, because in the end, the only killer orca in this story was captivity.